Hello, I'm Bruce Apar, and this is Frank J. Rich, and you're watching Bruce the Blog Goes Bazzo presents Frank Talks with Bruce the Blog. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Frank Talks with Bruce the Blog. As we've said in the past couple of shows, this is a new format where we are going to continue to interview all kinds of people in the community. Some of them you may know, some of them maybe could be you. And actually, if you do want to recommend somebody, including yourself, you can just email me at bapar@chasemediagroup.com. And we want to remind you that we are brought to you by the Penny Saver and Chase Media Group, and we thank CEO Carla Chase and, of course, my co-host Frank J. Rich for putting us up here. And we want to immediately welcome our esteemed guest, New York State Senator Greg Ball. Senator Ball has been with us before, and he's always a very compelling and interesting guest, just as he is a very compelling legislator. And Senator Ball, before we went on the air, actually, I just wanted to do some video verite, so to speak. As I was walking into the studio and you were outside in the parking lot, you know, I wasn't eavesdropping, but I couldn't help but overhear you're on the phone, I guess, to one of your staff, trying to help a constituent who you said had I guess, an electrical
there's
problem.
Wayward voltage from NYSEG.
Right, and I think, you know, people who follow you, and obviously, as with every legislator, you have some people who, you know, criticize you, as well as all the people who always vote for you, and that's why you get elected. But it's obvious you run 24/7. You're very hard driving. I mean, what is it that drives you? You know, in terms of public service.
I mean, look, if you're going to do something, you need to do it well. Otherwise, get the hell out of the way and let somebody else do it. I take it very seriously. You know, public service is an opportunity to do good, and I'm proud to run a very tough ship and an office that I run it like a business. I don't view it as a sit back government job and come in for a few hours. It's 24/7. I put my cell phone out there, which is you get some crazy calls at 2 o'clock in the morning, right? But you also get it's a great safety valve to know that your staff is on it all the time, because if not, I get a call to my cell phone. I've sent that out literally to millions of mailboxes now. And when people call, they know that they'll be taken care of, and that's important.
Now, Frank, of course, is a business consultant and columnist and strategist, and of course he has his column ROI in the Penny Saver and on ncmlocal.com, our website. And you were saying that you run your office as a business, but that a lot of legislators don't. I mean, has that been your experience?
I mean, I'm sure you've contacted various, members, and I know when I was, before I was in elected office, I would contact offices, and typically you get an automated reply on email, or maybe you get, some fake letter. I'll give you an example. I mean, we actually catalog everybody who calls, and then we have that list in a Google Doc, so we can then follow up on individual constituent concerns. We track those people who we're helping. Everybody who emails our office not only gets an automated reply, I see those emails, then they get a personal email, then we print those emails and send them a letter that I personally sign and review each letter. That takes a lot of time. Yeah. So if you're focused on your law firm, or if you're focused on your side business, or if you're focused on something else, there's no way that you can deal with that amount of work, but it's important. We follow up, and we do everything we possibly can, and we try to deal with each person as a priority and as a priority.
So you're saying for I don't say a lot of legislators, but there are legislators for whom this elected position is not their primary occupation or their full-time occupation.
It certainly isn't. We've seen in Albany where certain individuals are able to use their public position for their private benefit. I promised early on that I would not have outside employment. The papers are quick to attack. But a couple things that a lot of people don't know. Number one, I term limited myself. I stuck to those term limits in the Assembly. I am going to stick to those term limits in the Senate.
And you're running for your second term now, right?
Yeah, my second
Senate,
term right now. And I also said that I would not have outside employment. So I make $79,500 a year. We probably spend $40,000 a year on chicken dinners that I have no intention of eating. And it's 24/7. But a lot of legislators, unfortunately, are, if they have an outside law firm, a lot of people talk about the campaign finance reform,
right, and
the fact that we have to make contribution limits less. I mean, if you go online, you'll see how much God rest her soul, my grandmother gave me every year. That's not necessarily the problem with the system. The problem with the system is that people can use their consulting firms or their law firms, and when that big developer gives them $50,000, that's a private transaction. And that has not been cataloged for many years. That's where the corruption is inherently in the system. And if you're an attorney, because of attorney-client privilege, you can shield millions of dollars in transactions. Look, New York State's no different than other states. I'm sure this corruption happens everywhere. But those are the really tough issues that we need to address.
Right.
So how do you measure compensation then, Senator, especially in light of the petition currently on the floor to increase the salary of Assemblymen and Senators?
During this economy, it shouldn't even be considered to increase the salary. And I believe that we should pass term limits and make sure that people are not allowed to have outside income during their time of service. It should pay well enough that a middle-class person can run for office, but people should not be able to enrich themselves in their time in office.
But what about? Sorry, Frank. I just want to get in here. What about the argument that there are term limits, which are the elections, and that if somebody...
Yeah, but incumbents, Bruce, have over 90% re-election rates, and
you think both the name familiarity and
the power of incumbency is huge,
right,
especially with those members. When you're in the majority, and you have it's very tough as a challenger, and as somebody who has been one.
Right.
It takes an inordinate amount of work and effort to take out an incumbent. I mean, there's good and bad. I mean, you do a lot of good work as an incumbent. You develop, those relationships, but also you have the powers of the office. And we're all replaceable. I don't. People who think that they are, the second coming of George Washington always amaze me. Mm-hmm. Take a look at the senator we had in Vinnie Libel. A lot of people liked him a great deal. His approval ratings were through the roof. Yeah. I don't see people out on the street corner, saying, "Where's Vinnie? Where's Vinnie?" People go on with their lives. Right. Everybody in politics can be replaced, and I think with term limits, to have that changeover and to get those new ideas, you have these, especially with chairmanships. I mean, mm-hmm. You take a look at a guy like Vito Lopez, right, who has an enormous presence in that assembly chamber. It would have been good at some point maybe for him to either move up or move out and allow somebody new to come in.
Right.
And there's a life outside of politics too.
Right.
I mean, there are other jobs out there, right. And it wouldn't be a bad thing for these politicians to actually have to leave office, go make some honest money, go meet a payroll, and then at some point move to a higher level if they decide to do that.
Right. Some of those that do at the moment are the most ardent supporters of the view that the jobs in government, state government, ought to be part-time. And they've even gone to the extreme of actually counting the number of days that they work and the things that they do, and representing a 30-day-a-year work year, so to speak. You obviously have a different view of it than that, and I mean, on the surface, I think if just a lay person were to extend the kind of activity necessary to manage an office in government, it kind of suggests it's got to be pretty busy.
Yeah, I mean,
some
you have
don't see it.
People talk about it being a part-time pursuit, and at the end of the day, you have in Albany, say we're there Monday through Thursday, January to June. Really, the vast majority of work, and there's a huge amount of legislative work that needs to be done in Albany that is all-consuming. But at the same time, you're contemporaneously running your district office for over 300,000 people. And then when you get back into the district, it's not like it's vacation. I mean, there's a lot of work that needs to be done to help your constituents, to deliver grants. You know, I work day in and day out to try to make sure that we bring as much money home, because we pay so much in taxes, as we possibly can. And actually working those grants through the process, working with the community to, you know, to fill those needs. And then, you know, just getting out there and helping on the jobs front. I mean, we work with towns all the time to try to bring infrastructure dollars in, to try to entice businesses to come in. So it's a 24/7 pursuit. So while you're in Albany part of the time, there's an awful lot of work that needs to be done.
Good segue. Let's talk about jobs.
Yeah, I was going to say, and I just want to, as we get into jobs, on your website, Senator Ball, which is ball4ny.com.
Yep.
You have a tab, Agenda, and you have several topics. The top of the agenda is create jobs, and of course, it's the top of everybody's agenda right now. Right. So what? And you're introducing a bill with some of your colleagues.
We actually passed a bill in the Senate that, among other things, actually cuts the corporate tax rate for small businesses by 20%. We repealed the MTA payroll tax for 80% of the people who are paying it. You know, but and you hear the new slogan with Robert De Niro. I'm sure you've the new New York.
Right.
And it sounds flashy, and that's great. And there's a lot of good things that we're doing. We secured over $60 million in this region, working with the governor. But beyond just handing out checks, New York State has to reverse the environment that has become openly hostile to, especially to small business owners. And whether it be, it's not only just taxes and fees. And New York State certainly has beyond our fair share of those, in being such an expensive environment to do business. But also our regulations, and there are a lot of good regulations on the environment and health and labor. But in a global society where we are literally competing with you know, places like China and India, we also have to take into account that we have to keep these regulations and protections in place, but not be overly burdensome.
Right.
And one of the things, working with Governor Cuomo through the Spending and Government Efficiency Commission, is to actually have a one-stop shop where people can go through the permitting process in an expedited time frame. I mean, simply cutting down the permitting process from 2 years to 6 months to a business, it means money. Time means money. And we have to take that into account, especially in this environment.
And you know, an example of that, by the way, that well, Frank and I, as well as you, are familiar with. In our case, we live in Yorktown, as you know, and the supervisor there, Michael Grace, who's been in office since January, his first elected position, you know, he's a friend of business, and it's showing dividends, as you know. But you've been very involved, and I know he relies on you and, you know, your influence in Albany to help with a lot of the capital projects that he's spearheading.
Right. You know, there's definitely a difference, and you know, Supervisor Grace is doing a great job, and you do see in this job, I represent, you know, many towns, and certain towns have an anti-business reputation.
Absolutely.
And you don't get an anti-business reputation overnight. And it's a series of decisions. There are certain towns that go out of their way to go after small business owners on small things like signs, on signage. I mean, imagine being a small business owner and, you know, investing $500,000 in a restaurant in a tough location, and then to have the town constantly harass you with fine after fine after fine for simply putting out you know, a small sign.
Right.
I mean, at some point, common sense has to take over, and you have to realize, you know, we're all in this community together. How do we work together to help you out? And I think that, you know, in politics or in appointed positions, sometimes people get on a power kick, and it becomes an ego battle instead of just trying to work together to help people out. This is a tough state to do business in. If somebody's willing to take their money and invest in your community, it's my opinion that all of your government officials should bend over backwards to make sure that not only do you stay in business, but that eventually that you expand and that you're successful.
Right.
Because, you know, your success is everybody's success.
Right. No, absolutely. Governor Cuomo, you know, everybody I think knows who follows politics or just follows state business, is a very aggressive, lean forward chief executive who has, it's also an open secret, you might say, has presidential ambitions, possibly in 2016.
Right.
What's your relationship with him like?
You know, Cuomo has been a tremendous governor, and I have only been in politics now for like 6 or 7, years. Although I have a lot more scar tissue on my back than typical for 6 or 7 years. But I have watched a couple of these governors. I mean, we had Patterson, we had Spitzer, and Spitzer is a very intelligent, tough guy. But the system itself and his personality did not allow him to be successful. And even before the hookers, okay, Spitzer really folded during that budget process. If you remember the budget process, even before his scandals, he talked about everything changing on day one. Yet when he was elected, the first budget he passed was the largest increase in state spending in New York State history. So he really didn't have, whereas Cuomo came in, and I think that Cuomo's experience at a federal level in the Clinton administration, but more importantly, I think him being in that governor's mansion, watching his father, mistakes, successes, he's proven to be an extraordinarily effective governor. I have never, Shelley Silver is the type of guy where if you walk into a dark alley, you will walk with him, you will walk out dragging your intestines. I mean, he is a tough guy,
right.
Political operator, and typically he will wait out a governor. I personally have seen it, and whatever Cuomo, for whatever reason, I don't know if it's pictures, if it's he knows something, or if it's just an uncanny charm that but he is able to move Shelley Silver in a way that I never have seen anybody. And if you look at the reforms that have done. When we talk about unfunded mandate relief, $80 billion in savings through Tier 6, that was passed. That was an enormous feat. Shelley Silver never would have considered that before. 2 balanced budgets that were actually early in our chamber and on time overall. A cut in overall state spending. These are things that Shelley Silver never would have, even considered previously.
Right. And also, under your agenda listing on your website, you have
which needs to be updated, John.
Oh, okay. Okay, yes. And Senator Ball's not just talking to nobody; he's talking to
my imaginary
his
friend,
trusted aide, Joe Backmeyer, who does a great job. We want to point out.
He does do a great job. We love him.
But the number one is to create jobs. Number 2, you have Shake Up Albany. So I think it's segueing from what you were just talking about. So you're very complimentary of the governor, Governor Cuomo. You work well with him. So a lot of people would say, let's be honest. Your detractors would say, well, Senator Ball, got into office saying he's going to shake up Albany as an outsider, but aren't you now part of the establishment?
Well, I'll tell you this. I mean, in the assembly, where people remember me as the fire-breathing dragon in the assembly, but at the end of the day, I was in the super minority in the assembly. And if I was not standing there fighting with every inch of my soul, then I had no business collecting a paycheck. I went to Albany to the assembly to really shake that place up, and I did it. I mean, I absolutely did it. Just go on Google, go on YouTube, and watch the footage. It's a hell of a show to watch my assembly days. As a senator in the majority, it's my responsibility to not just shake the place up, but also to lead. Right. I'm the chairman of Veterans Affairs and Homeland Security. We have delivered millions of dollars for this, tens of millions of dollars for this district. You don't do that by simply being a rabble-rouser. And that said, I'm not a shrinking violet, and when I need to, I make my voice heard, but there's a different way to do that. And I have a very good relationship with colleagues on both sides, a very good relationship, working relationship working with the governor, and certainly with my majority leader and my colleagues. And there are certain things that when my back is up against a wall, they know it, and we get it done. Right. I give you an example. They were the budget that came down from the governor was cutting over $10 million for our veterans homes. We had $1 million that was getting cut from Montrose. Right. That is not going to happen over my dead body. It's just not going to happen. Now, that was an intense battle because the assembly did not want to put that money back into that budget. At the end of the day, we got over $10 million restored. We got over $1 million from Montrose, but that wasn't easy. $500,000 for statewide veteran cemetery. These are the type of things. Hannah's Law. The insurance lobby did not want to pass Hannah's Law. We got Hannah's Law passed in the Senate. Out of network, which is another issue where the insurance companies are screwing New Yorkers. They're making over multi-billion-dollar profits. But this out of network issue where you can be entirely insured. We had a family, I think it was in Bedford Hills. He had a cardiac condition, had to go to a place that could take care of him. They took care of him. And when he woke up, they said, oh, you're out of network. Here's a $99,000 bill. I mean, the guy nearly had another heart attack. And the insurance companies are using that loophole all throughout New York. So I've put together a coalition, and we got that bill passed in the Senate. But that doesn't, that doesn't happen by being a crybaby, number one, or standing on your desk and yelling at people. That happens by working, with your colleagues and knowing which battles to pick. And I think in my time in the Assembly, I was able to hit the ground in the Senate and be much more effective because I have learned there's a larger war that needs to be fought. It's built upon developing those relationships, and you don't have to fight every single battle because you need to survive for another day.
But then you did stand on your desk and yell at people, didn't you?
I didn't in the Assembly. In the Assembly, the rumor is I was standing on my desk, but I didn't typically stand on my desk.
Oh, okay.
I kind of looked like it. Made a lot of friends that day.
Yeah, I remember that.
I united both parties to say, Greg, get the hell out of here.
Yes, that YouTube really did go viral, I'll tell you.
It was
sounds like,
speech.
In summary, you are what you need to be under the circumstances, so to speak. And if you had that kind of perspective, which must be rare, you could see clearly what was needed in the Assembly, where you might not have much strength or power to get bills
in
passed,
the Assembly. People don't, if they really saw how Albany
what's the ratio,
functions
like
and doesn't
100,
function.
like 3 to 1?
When I was there, it was less than
2 to 1.
It's
right?
2 to 1.
Yeah,
when
right.
I was there, it was even less.
Yeah.
And as a minority assemblyman, your only power is that bully pulpit.
Right.
So I'll give you an example on the driver when they try to give driver's licenses to illegal aliens, but not just illegal aliens. I mean, they were opening up a loophole that was similar to how the hijackers, the 19 hijackers, got their driver's licenses in other states, which is just criminally insane. Now they could have gotten that done, but we were able to use the bully pulpit to stand up very vociferously and stop that. There are pieces of legislation that used to pass the Assembly unanimously, but because I would get up and debate, quite fiercely, we actually had some bills that we nearly killed. Then Shelley would actually have to come out and start counting heads and get more votes. But the point is, in the years after that, they wouldn't even bring the bill to the floor because they didn't want me to debate it. I mean, so you can have an effect in the minority in the Assembly, but if you're going in the minority in the Assembly to go make friends, I think you should probably go do something else. Because
is that kind of like my leading a meeting at the office?
It was never my goal to play golf with Shelley Silver.
I refuse to answer on the grounds that it may tend to incriminate me. No, but you are running Senator Ball for your second term, in New York State.
That's
Senate.
up now.
Well, that's what I'm told anyhow. No, you have a few more days.
Okay.
But really, I want to talk about your campaign style, which some would call colorful.
Yeah.
Others would call words that are colorful that we can't use on the air.
Right.
But it's certainly, without argument, a take no prisoners campaign style.
Sure.
I mean, you really go at it. And one of the it seems like you have fun, campaigning. Of course, your opponents may not agree with that, but but you do have this history of nicknaming your opponents.
Sure.
And apparently it's been working. I mean, Tax Hike Mike we know about with County Legislator Mike Kaplowitz around for the Senate.
It's a great name for him.
And then there was Crazy Cats with State Assembly members.
Yeah, that was right.
And lately it's your opponent in this current race, Justin Wagner, Wacky Wagner.
Right.
So what is that about?
Well, first to tell you, this is a tough business. This is New York State politics.
Right.
And if you can't take the heat, get out of the kitchen.
Right.
If you can't take the heat of a campaign, you have no business being in this position. If anybody thinks it's easy being a senator in the state of New York and fighting on behalf of your constituents every single day, anybody who takes that lightly is simply going to fall to the wayside, and constituents are going to suffer. I mean, truly, It's not easy. The money that we've delivered for Yorktown, If you look at the dollars that are coming in for either the athletic fields or for the senior center, that is not an easy process to get those money, especially in this tough environment that we're in. Getting a bill passed in both houses, this is not a county legislature, it's not a town board. You're talking about 150 members, 62 on the other side, 62 on ours. A lot of New York City Democrats who have totally different ideas of what the priorities are of the state compared to a suburban district like this. And if you can't take a campaign, you really need to go consider another profession. I run a tough campaign.
Right.
I'm proud of running a tough campaign. And the people, the people deserve to have that type of debate.
So is that
and I've been on the other end of some very tough campaigns as well. I mean, some of these opponents have been quite tough and spent millions of dollars in their own right as well.
Right. And if I'm not mistaken, you've never lost an election, have you? Right? Is that true? Right. Okay, it's a good thing I have a follow-up question prepared. The MTA tax, which you did, you were early on fighting that, and it's been repealed, but of course the MTA is saying they're going to appeal the repeal. I mean, what are the chances of that happening?
Well, we have the 80% repeals done. Now, the court just ruled because one of the things that you may remember we did is that we worked with the counties to get a lawsuit going because we believed it to be an unconstitutional tax. They really should have, in our opinion, it should have required home rule legislation to get this done, which, not to get too much into the weeds, but it never had. So the courts have now agreed with us that it is indeed unconstitutional. That's what they're going to appeal. The repeal, the 80% repeal, is a done deal. We need to get a full repeal, and the goal, actually, if we're successful at the next level with the court case, is to actually get a retroactive repeal and give people those monies back. That's just not a political thing. It actually makes sense to do that in this economy because these are the job creators. We never should have taken their money in the first place. So to give them money back is only going to lead to job creation and more economic activity, which is a good thing.
Right. Does it bear at all on the practice of the MTA and either its efficiency or inefficiency?
Yeah. The press always comes and they say, where are you going to find the money? Look, that's the MTA's job. I mean, we're talking about an organization that had 2 sets of books. We're talking about an organization that has waste, fraud, and abuse. They had, mob infiltration down at the construction of their headquarters down at, I think the address is 2 Broadway. You're talking about project overruns 600-700%. So, they don't need a multi-billion-dollar bailout. They need to get control of their own organization and do the right thing by the taxpayers. Mm.
And as we close it out, because we just get the high sign from our director, Richard Redmond, why don't we close it out, Senator Ball, by just getting your take on the presidential election? And some of the polls currently don't necessarily favor Governor Romney. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts? It's
a critical election. This president had an enormous opportunity to be an absolutely amazing president. He was given a huge opportunity by the American people to truly be a historic president. And if he focused nothing else but on jobs, and if he came in and focused on building bridges, building roads, building our crumbling infrastructure, I think he would be at 75% right now. In fact, I'd probably be voting for him, to be totally honest with you. This guy came in and he was very polarizing. He is not a patch on Bill Clinton's underwear. Mm-hmm. Bill Clinton was a guy who a lot of Republicans may not like, but Bill Clinton worked with Republicans.
Right. Yeah,
he knew how to work in a very collaborative way. Mm-hmm. And this president, and I'm not saying it has been easy because we have people on the extreme right in our party, but guess what? Bill Clinton worked with a lot of people on the extreme right, including during the time when they were censuring him as president. Bill Clinton was able to get it done. I mean, he had a personal relationship with Newt Gingrich, who was going after him like a junkyard dog, but he still had that personal relationship. Yeah. President Obama does not have that ability. Right. And I think it has a lot to do with his ego. It's unfortunate because he was given an enormous opportunity. So I'll be supporting, Governor Romney, who I hope can find the Romney in the boardroom and bring him out to the American public because that's who we need. The tough Governor Romney, who's a successful businessman. Okay. And on that note, Senator Ball, thanks as always for being with us. And I want to thank my co-host Frank J. Rich, and thank you for watching. You can also
catch these shows, including this one, on YouTube. Just go to YouTube and type in NCN Local, and maybe you're watching this on YouTube. NCN Local TV, that is. And of course, when Bruce the Blog listens, people talk. Thanks for watching.